there. Welcome to another episode of the Influential Nonprofit. I am taking a step outside of my comfort zone because I have a guest here and we're going to talk about cryptocurrency. So, Pat Duffy, welcome to the Influential Nonprofit.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Okay, I'm not sure how much you know about. I typically talk about, people. What I really help people with is how our thoughts and feelings affect our everyday decision making, how we can become more conscious leaders so we can be more powerful fundraisers and all that stuff. And so this is way out of my zone, but I also think, and I think it's very important to learn new things. And if there's a way we can be generating revenue that we don't know about yet, I want to talk about it. So we're going to talk about it. Okay, so let me do your quick intro. You founded the Giving Block. It's a platform enabling nonprofits to accept crypto donations. And this innovative solution has raised over $170 million. So that's a lot of money, making crypto philanthropy mainstream. And you're a recognized leader in the field, and you've been all over Forbes under 30. Oh my goodness. 30 under 30, frequently featured in major outlets and all that. So you're doing great work. I'm very excited. And obviously you're very accomplished. Before we go into the content, I always ask this question. Tell me something that you're proud of that you don't get to brag about a lot.
Yeah. I guess in my personal life, I've done a good job staying close to my family. I think that was always a priority. Everybody moves around a lot. And I think just kind of being there for my folks, my brother, stuff like that, I'd probably say that's got to be it.
So, like, if you're moving around a lot, you have to take special effort to be close to family, and you've like made that effort. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah, moving to be close to folks and then kind of spending time working from different areas just to spend a bit more time with them.
Oh, that's great. Because you could probably work from anywhere, can't you?
Oftentimes, yes. A lot of my schedule is not up to me in terms of meetings and then stuff where I need to be on site, but outside of that, for sure.
Okay. So let's get into let's just talk about this. I want to just start with the why. That's a great place to start. Why should nonprofits accept cryptocurrency donations? What's the point of that?
Yeah, a few years ago, I would have said because it's kind of it was cutting edge and it was new. It was kind of this differentiator and shiny, exciting thing with some money moving around. Today, it shifted a little bit. I would say today for nonprofits, in particular, kind of mid-size and large nonprofits, it's kind of a necessity. It's the main way that Gen Zs invest. It's close to 90% of millennial millionaires are crypto traders at this point. Gen X has even more money in crypto than those other generations combined. So I'd say just the adoption of cryptocurrency by Fidelity and BlackRock over the past
Okay.
couple of years, it is really, really fought to have dominance in the sector, and now there's trillions of dollars invested. It's kind of unavoidable.
Okay. So I've been around many, many tables of people who say, we want to attract the younger donor. We want to, they're looking at their donor base, which is aging, right? It's a boomer. I mean, I'm Gen X, like I'm an older Gen X, okay? It's a boomer, and they can see that. And so this is one way that you could actually appeal to younger donors. They might be in, right, like that, because if that's something that would be attractive to them, we might consider offering this.
Yeah, no, that's right. And there's been what I feel is a largely unnecessary gap that's been between Gen X and millennials the most now starting to be Gen Z and the major gifts bridge. I think things like stock and donor advised funds have never been actively suggested as giving options. Nonprofits have really relied on advisors giving them a phone call or donors requesting a PDF with brokerage instructions. Like these major gift tax offset options have never been front and center and kind of easy to give through the traditional giving forms. So I think crypto kind of broke from that. It's the fact that it's so easy to send through a form is why I think for millennials in particular, but now Gen Z is moving into this, the average gift size being 5 to 15 grand a pop. It's kind of tough for nonprofits to find a donation method that appeals to these younger donors
Right.
that isn't really kind of a $20 a month type thing or Venmo, Cash App, you hear about all these new donor doors. It's not often the case where you get a donor age where they're usually in their 20s and 30s, but the average gift size is 15 grand.
All right. So let's unpack that for just a second. I want to make sure we got that. So what you're saying is in the crypto donations are often larger, that like a person of the same generation or maybe the same age range, if they're giving, Venmo or cash, they're giving low, or they're a monthly giving. And also, like, I've done a lot on monthly giving, and that has its place, that has its role. I feel like everything has a role for somewhere. You're getting lowered out. That's a cash donation. These folks tend to give more in the major giver through crypto
Yeah,
donations. Okay.
absolutely. It's
Okay.
largely driven by kind of the tax incentives and then just
Okay.
the wealth creation in the space.
All right. And then, so what are some other benefits of crypto for nonprofits?
Yeah, I would say in terms of just opening up to net new donors, it's a really good tool as well. There tends to be um, a bit of I don't know, reinforcing existing alignments is a good way of putting it. Just older donors, meaning we target older donors, and a donor base gravitating toward female donors versus male, et cetera. I think a lot of nonprofits, universities, faith-based organizations, they tend to fundraise a particular way and target a particular type of donors. I think cryptocurrency, which was historically more male than female, significantly younger versus older, and then targeting this tax incentive kind of opened up, I'd say, for the first time, a major gift focus that's kind of built for the great wealth transfer versus kind of doubling down on procedures and fundraising practices that will kind of go off a cliff at a certain point as the wealth changes hands.
Okay. So what is the tax incentive? You mentioned it a couple times. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So anytime you donate property to a nonprofit of any type that can appreciate in value, the donor doesn't pay taxes on that, and neither does the charity. So that opens up a couple of really interesting maneuvers. If you're, let's say, trying to give $1 million to a charity, and instead of giving the cash you have in the bank, you give Bitcoin or stocks or even real estate, a car, etc. The full value goes to the charity. You get the full $1 million write-off, and you're not on the hook for, you know, state and federal, depending on the appreciation, up to 200 or 300 grand in tax liability. So if you sold that in advance, you'd either give the nonprofit $1 million and then eat an additional 20-30% tax liability on top of that, which is a very expensive way to give that amount of money, or you just donate less. So the donor ends up giving
Right.
700-800 thousand instead of the million. So larger write-off. And then with crypto, what's cool is there's no wash rule. So if you sell a stock, you donate a stock, you have to wait a bit of time to buy the position back. With crypto, you don't have to. So a lot of donors do this kind of arbitrage move where they'll send a significantly larger donation because the market's in a good place. They want to take advantage of that value, give 100 grand to a charity, and then they'll take the 100 grand they would have otherwise donated, and they'll buy $100,000 worth of Bitcoin. They end up with the same kind of balance of their portfolios if they've given that cash, but instead they're sitting on Bitcoin that's at today's cost basis. The tax burden has evaporated. You bought it for today's prices at today's price. It's kind of a magical way to erase tax burdens.
Wow. Okay. Um, that that sounds super fascinating. And I can see where there would be a lot of benefits to that. Okay, let's talk about how you started this. I'm sure when you were a young boy, you were thinking, I'm gonna grow up and start an organization. So tell
Yeah.
me how you founded the Giving Block and what it's all about.
Yep, I dreamed of just tax liability conversations. It's everyone's dream. Other kids wanted to be firemen. I wanted to
Yeah.
be a CPA. No, so I got into trading crypto while I was working at a nonprofit, and the reason I got into it is because my now co-founder got me into it. So it was just a perfect aligning of the stars. I was working at a charity, and then this was 2017 at this point. It's kind of even weird to say. It's been a long time. But we saw Ashton Kutcher go on Ellen DeGeneres that year and send millions of dollars in crypto to her nonprofit. And then big news story about 50 million getting donated in crypto to all these universities to build kind of like blockchain and crypto research programs so the US could lead in that area. The Pineapple Fund was one anonymous donor. They gave 55 million of Bitcoin to these charities. And through that process, we're like, we got to set up my nonprofit to take it. And there weren't really good solutions for charities at that time that just automated the basic stuff. Charities had kind of the same questions. They're like, okay, if someone sends me Bitcoin, what do I do with it now? How do I
Right.
sell it? What's it actually worth? So just having it connect to an exchange where it automatically excels, like a Fidelity for crypto is kind of the equivalent of what we use, where it just liquidates it instantaneously at the going rate. So it's like, okay, price volatility, not a concern. And then they're like, what about tax receipts? Like, what do we tell the donor about their gift? What's it actually valued at? How do we do that? Automating that process. Okay, what about CRM integrations, right? So we're not manually trying to create a tagging system for crypto gifts
Sure.
versus
Yeah,
other
yeah, yeah,
gifts.
yeah.
So we just started tacking those things on and building out a system. Originally for the charity I was at, we did it as kind of a pet project. Um, and over time, we started meeting with the handful of charities we could find, Save the Children, Water Project, that were already taking crypto. And we just said, hey, A, if we gave you the similar solution, would it automate some of those processes? And then B, what else can we do to help? And we found out pretty quickly that even the nonprofits who were taking crypto, similar to Stock and DAF, they weren't fundraising it. We Save the Children have been taking crypto since 2013. We were like, oh my God, you must have so much. And they were like, not that much. Like we've gotten some, but we don't get a lot. It's like, oh, how do you market it to donors? Where do you find them? How do you post about it? How do you steward them? We don't have these unique processes. So we found some cool pioneers and a handful of charities to build out these crypto specific engines. And we started building, 7, 8 figure revenue channels from crypto just because there was so much money out there and so few nonprofits were trying to get it.
Right. So um they were taking it, but they weren't, it was kind of passive, right? If somebody gave it to them, they would receive it, but there really wasn't an effort to solicit or to promote this. And then
Yeah.
and then you partnered with them to actually create some intention around this, with anything that we want, we create intention around. Um, and so what I would love, because I'm a marketer, right? That's my background. What is, from the marketing perspective, um, how do we connect with, like, who are crypto donors and how do you connect with them? I guess my question is really about, like, are these people that are in your donor base now, or are they people that you want to go find, or is it a combo?
Yeah. So it's definitely a combo. It tends to be like a 60-40 split for the average nonprofit, the way we look at it. I think a lot of nonprofits, like from a starting point, think of it as a net new donor opportunity because they're like, well, I can't have these people in my audience already. Um, but we talk about it kind of like soccer sometimes. We're like, it's a way bigger deal than you probably think it is. Like if you talk to someone in the US about soccer, you're like, is it that big of a deal? It's like, oh, it is. You just got to go talk to other people.
Right.
Um, in the US, for instance, there's about 60 million users. So if you just think about adults and then people who potentially invest, it's a huge percentage. It's not a majority by any means. It's not like stocks, but it's big time. And then if you think about donors under the age of 40 in particular, it's highly likely. So if you just take any average donor base, like the odds of you not having crypto users in your donor base is virtually zero. So even if it's a small percentage, it's ultimately worth targeting those folks first. And then beyond that, in terms of getting net new ones, like you're saying, the marketing hat,
Yeah.
putting that on, um, it's not as complicated as I think people make it out to be. There's a lot of experts out there that really try to get people to open Discord channels and get really good at Reddit or try to DM people, attend conferences, build relationships. You can do all those things. But our starting place as a formula is like one, we do a press release for nonprofits generally, where they just go, hey, we take this stuff. We're surprised after this many years that it still works, but that tends to be the most high performing press release any nonprofit puts out that year. No matter what, we've had one nonprofit do a different press release about a research breakthrough that outperformed the crypto one, but literally just saying you take the stuff tends to be interesting. And as interesting as a lot of these nonprofits are, the media tends to pick up on that intersection a bit more. So just announcing that you take it. B, telling your existing donors that you take it, not once, but repeatedly. This doesn't need to be like a crypto campaign, but if I open your newsletter and I see here's a list of ways we take donations and crypto is just sitting there, or I open a capital campaign email and I see crypto stock DAF, these other options are there. If I open a direct mailer and there's a QR code with a little crypto thing on the back of it or whatever, it's just you start sprinkling these in and then you get just donors to the consideration stage like, oh, I see this is an option for me. And there's a little sentence there that goes, some donors choose to give this way because they can give even more and pay less taxes. Check it out. Um, Same thing you would want to do with stock and DAF that nonprofits generally don't. And
Right.
then in terms of net new donors, Twitter, now X, is one of the best platforms for it. Just posting a little bit out there and the fact that you take it and then trying to expand beyond that, that tends to be the kind of baseline playbook.
Okay. All right. I get it. It's what the overall theme I'm getting here is this is probably simpler than you think it is. I think it may sound scary because remember, I'm talking about how our thoughts and feelings get you be like, that's ooh, crypto. Oh, that's so crazy. We're like, it's really not. It's not. It's way more common than you think. It's very, very popular with younger donors, which a lot of us are looking for. Like that's what a lot they want to continue, right? And grow their donor base, the younger generation. And so how does Giving Block actually work with nonprofits? So if I'm a nonprofit executive and I'm a mid-size organization, I am busier than I ever want to be. How is this? Well, I don't want to say that because I think we've already answered that. Is it how do you work with organizations to make this easy?
Yeah. So there's three main stages. There's the kind of solutioning, the setup of the tool itself. There's then the activation, which is some of the stuff we talked about, how you kind of roll it out to your team and donors. And then there's the ongoing stuff you want to do. So setting up for success in that area from a fundraiser, marketer, operations, finance, et cetera. In terms of the setup, we just want to set up the tool the right way and set it up on the site the right way. So all the low hanging fruit that almost every other nonprofit missed before we started doing this. Like, can you find it easily in your ways to give menu? Can you find it from your donate page? Is it work on desktop and mobile? Right? Do you have the right options in the right order? We just kind of tune up the solution that it's plugged in and then it does all the things like it normally does. It automatically sells the crypto for cash. You have an anonymous option for donors if you want that. If you don't want to take anonymous crypto gifts, we turn that off. All those little calibration things that can avoid all of the headaches down the road. So you get the solution in place and on the site in the right way. Then there's the activation. So it's sort of like these are the tax documents that are automated. Here are the things the finance team needs. Little playbooks and meetings, just like a few little things that we do through an activation process. That's like, okay, the whole team knows how to talk about the stuff and accept it, and donors are now aware that this is an option for us. And then beyond that, we want to just make sure if we have a good CRM integration for them, that we get that baked in and put together. If they're going to be targeting a particular type of fundraising, let's say end of year or younger donors, some segmented profile, that they make those considerations ahead of time. So it isn't some one internal champion who loves crypto showing up to every meeting, talking about Bitcoin for 6 months, everybody kind of burning out and then letting it
Yes.
die. Because that's what happens to most technologies. So the main thing we do is we're like, how can we as much as possible, reduce how much work goes into it in that first like 3 to 6 months, and then ensure that you have as many opportunities as possible to get gifts. Because if you're not getting gifts in the early going, most nonprofits kind of quit on it, just like
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. So, and this is crypto, stock, and donor advised funds, right? Or is it
Yeah,
okay? Mm-hmm.
crypto is our main product. It always has been. We tacked on donor advised fund and stock just because we found the same problems. We were always just saying, do this with crypto the same way you would with stock. And we got like blank
People
eyes.
were
We're
like,
like, do you tell your donors that you take stock donations? And they're like, no.
no,
Like, you
right.
definitely should tell them. It's just like, how do you incentivize people to give from a DAF? They've got $260 billion parked in donor advised fund accounts. Like, do you match DAF gifts, right? Because it's already earmarked. They can't spend it on groceries. Have you ever like matched DAF gifts specifically? And charities are usually like, we've never even told them, but we just send them off to another platform and we hope they log in and push a transfer. It's just like, okay, well, all of these things are tax optimized. They're all kind of tied together in the same ecosystem. You message the same way, crypto stock DAF. If you've got a tax efficient way to give, we take it. You can do it on our site in a few clicks. We want to make it easy for you.
Okay. Um, let me just see here. I'm looking at my questions real quick. What do you see as what's the future of crypto donations for nonprofits? I mean, I guess what you're going to tell me is it's only going to increase.
I sure hope so. There's a few barriers, of course, for sure. The things that could get in the way are donor education on the tax piece. Like we're finding out over the last few years as we've done more stock and DAF stuff too, like a lot of donors aren't as educated on this as we'd hoped. And it largely comes from younger donors who don't work with advisors as much. It's just a problem we don't think about a lot. It's like, okay, they buy their stocks on Robinhood and their crypto on Coinbase. They do their tax on TurboTax. and their nonprofit gives them a credit card donation form. Why don't they give stocks or crypto? It's like, I don't think any of them have even been told
Yeah.
by anyone ever that it's even a thing you could donate.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah, I see that as one of the big barriers. So like nonprofits bringing it up, I'd say is the biggest thing. Are their donors going to even know this is an option? That'll separate, I'd say, winners from the losers. Um, and then just overall adoption in the political sphere. It's getting a bit politicized recently because Donald Trump has been supportive of cryptocurrency, which has created a bit of a counter movement. That's like one of the things that scares me. I would hate to see it become partisan. It's not a partisan technology, as far as I can tell, in terms of how it works, the arguments for or against it. Um, that could potentially impact it in terms of like if it will be regulated for or against, if it'll be easier or more difficult for banks to hold it, et cetera. Um, as long as things remain relatively equal, what we should see though is a continued growth of the user base, which has grown really fast in the US. Um, and then overall more investment in the space, considering it's only even been available on the stock market for a few months. It's been a completely separate ecosystem with their own accounts and
Right.
exchanges up until pretty recently. So some institutional funds coming in should hopefully bolster it.
All right. So if someone listening is like, I would like to learn more about this, I think you have a link. We're going to put a link in the show notes. Is there a guide they can take a look at?
Yeah, we have an annual report we put out that I think is pretty helpful. That's a good guide to read a bit on your own. Um, and I'd always strongly recommend like booking a product demo so you can see what stuff is automated. Like I cannot tell you how many nonprofits will come to us eventually with like a list of questions, considerations, stuff that they've been kicking around with their board. And it's like, that's been automated for 6 years. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
been like the real sticking point around like, well, what exchange account do we set up, et cetera. So what I would say is even if you're not setting this up anytime soon, just like waste a member of my team's time and write down all your questions and grab 30 minutes and be like, I'm not buying anything, but like these are the things I need to know and understand rather than spending 6 hours on a Saturday for a few months. Like the
Yeah.
easiest way to do it is just grab someone from my team who's been having
All
those
right.
conversations for a while.
And I have the link to your website, and they can book if they can book a time there. I mean, that's what I
Yep.
would do. And I'm going to reframe your story a little bit. It's really not a waste of time. It's anyway, like I'm sure they're happy to share their knowledge, and you can also, and somebody can, you're right, they could go do the research on their own, or you could just tap into somebody for a few minutes and come with all your questions and get them answered, and at least sort of know, like where's the starting point here, right? Like what do we want to start with? Okay. I, we're almost done. I would love for you to give like an example, like maybe just a little case study of an organization that you felt like maybe started at zero and created something.
Yeah. It varies so much from like the larger to the smaller. So, I mean, the notable stories I think are more well known at this point, the Save the Children and American Cancer Society, St. Jude, like some of those big crypto programs. But I think one of the smaller ones that I think is a good case study is Orangutan Outreach. Um, Small nonprofit. I think they were $550,000 a year or so when they were first getting started. Um, Added the crypto giving option, and in addition to doing some crypto fundraising at a time when crypto was popular, NFTs were kind of having a renaissance in that moment. And they did some DMs and a bit of posting online and connected with what ended up being one of the biggest NFT projects of all time. It's called Bored Ape Yacht Club. Um, in that particular year, they tripled their budget accepting crypto just from that partnership with a NFT creator. They raised little over $1 million in crypto on top of their regular budget. And for a nonprofit of that size, in terms of how many orangutans they can support and the enclosures and all that, it was really transformative. I think it's a good story just to point to. Um, it's not a huge formulaic rollout of cryptocurrency. It's really just kind of making the giving option um, obviously known to existing and net new donors and letting the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. And okay, that I love that story because that's exactly kind of the size of organization that, like American Cancer Society or, Save the Children, like, oh, but okay, I get that, like $500,000, and it can work for you. So, and that's very cool. All right. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
No, I would just say, yeah, for anyone listening, like read a bit about crypto and don't get too bogged down in the technology itself. I can't
Right.
tell you how many people, yeah, that we talked to for forever. Folks in my friends and family too, where they're like trying to figure out blockchain and all that good stuff. I always just point to like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and cameras, combustion engines. Like there's not like an engineering degree needed to tap into like these technologies, similar to AI and ChatGPT. You can just like pull up a link and start asking it questions. Crypto is very similar. It's not nearly as scary and complex as it seems to interface with it.
All right, that's good. It's always good to know. I don't think things are ever really as scary as we think they are, just in general. Okay, last question. I always end with this question. I'm in St. Louis, you're in Florida, but we ever wind up at a karaoke bar together, which in my life is a high probability. What's your go-to song, Pat? What are you singing?
Oh, I have one actually. I do "With Arms Wide Open" by Creed. It's something
Oh,
we started singing in
nice.
because you do the Creed voice. You know what I
Yes,
mean with
with
the
arms
gravel.
wide open.
We started doing it when I was in college because we thought it was funny because everyone was doing like "All I Want for Christmas Is You" and like fun party songs, and then you just go pull up a stool and just like tilt your head down and sing it. And by the time it's over, it's a complete reset of the bar's energy. So it's fun. If you want to take a social risk, it's I highly
Two
recommend.
arms, two Creed arms wide open.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Pat, thanks for being with me today and demystifying all this, maybe giving some inspiration to some folks to try to look into this and to think about how they can step into, accepting crypto and raising more money from all the young people everybody wants to connect with. And we will put all of the links will be in the show notes. So if you want to book that time and get the guides and dig around on their website, there is a lot of resources in there for you to learn. I would encourage you to do that. When somebody offers up some expert time, take it, because you never know what you're going to learn and you never know what can benefit you. And that's it for me and this episode of The Influential Nonprofit, and we'll see you next time.